Hey guys, welcome back to lesson 9, where we are going to start doing more with the if statement. So this program that we're going to write, I called it L9 sales tax for lesson 9, and it's going to calculate the sales tax in Missouri. And we are going to be getting user input for this one too. So I'm going to just go back to my lesson 9, copy and paste these two import lines, and paste them straight up at the top. So we are going to be getting our input from the keyboard, so we're going to need a scanner, and I'm going to name mine KB. Then we're going to have to ask a question. So if we're doing this about sales tax, we should ask, how much did you spend? And then we're going to import that amount. So we're going to probably want to use a double because, money is in decimals, and then we can call it spent. We're also trying to calculate the state tax in Missouri. So what we're going to do is come on down and we're going to ask another question and import another answer. So we're going to say, what state did you make the purchase in? And then we're going to import from the keyboard whatever state they type in. Because we used a scanner up here and we set it up where we imported a number and then a string, we can actually use the same scanner for both the double and for the string. Okay, so we just got the cost and the state from the keyboard, and now we're going to come down and do our conditional statement. So now we're going to set up a double tax. We're going to initialize it to 0. So it's not actually going to be 0, but we need to declare and initialize it before we use it in our conditional statement so that we can adapt it later on. So now we want to come up with our conditional statement. So we're going to say if our state is typed in as Missouri or Mo, it'll pop up. So the thing is, we can't test it the way we would test numbers in a Boolean. So we wouldn't say like double equals Missouri because that's not how you would say it for a string. For this, you're going to have to use a method. So for this, you're going to do state dot equals, and we're going to type in Missouri. And because there's a couple of different ways that we could type that in, we're going to say or state dot equals Mo. You don't ever put a semicolon. You see how it just automatically kind of goes in there? At the end of an if statement, you do not put a semicolon. So come on down and put in your brackets. And I usually do tab these over underneath my if statement so I know what brackets go where. So now inside those brackets, we're going to say what the tax is. So if you bought something in Missouri, the tax is going to be equal to whatever you spent times 0.08. The thing is, we're using an if statement here, but we do not have to have an else. So we are not going to create an else for this because I don't really want to look up what all the tax is for every other state. You could, but that sounds painful. So for right now, we're just going to leave the if statement with just the if statement. We're not going to have an else statement. So then come down out of your statement and we're going to actually finish the program. So we're going to say, we're starting double and call it total cost equals whatever you spent plus the tax. So that takes, like if you spent $20, add 20 to whatever you had to spend on tax. Then we're going to system.out.println until you spent. And then I'm going to put a space and a $sign there because I want to know how much it costs. Money is $signs. And add in your total cost. And I'm going to say plus in quotes and period. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our program. So we run it. It says how much did you spend? I spent 50. All right, so it finishes out and runs straight through. So we messed up this scanner. So what happens is whenever you open a scanner, you can have strings before doubles, but you can't have doubles before strings. So I'm going to cut and paste my string above my double. So go ahead and fix that. So you're bringing in your string and then you're bringing in your double. So let's go ahead and run that again. So what state did you make the purchase in? We're saying Missouri. How much did you spend? Let's say $50. So you spent $54. And go ahead and run it again. And we're going to test it with Mo. So what state did you make the purchase in? Mo. How much you spend? Spent 20 bucks. I spent $21.60. Notice that it doesn't put the 0 there. That's a decimal thing. We'll talk about formatting numbers later. Don't worry about it. But what if you typed in lowercase mo? It doesn't go through that if statement because lowercase mo is not one of our options here. So what we're going to do with our if statement, instead of saying just dot equals, we're going to say state dot equals ignore case. We're going to do the same thing for this mo. So that way, it's not just going to say it's equal to, but it's going to ignore the case that you type it in, and then it should work. So this is like doing a minor idiot proofing of our thing so that you can be a little bit more open with your user. So what state did you make the purchase in? Mo, $50. All right, it works. So here's some notes for you guys so far. So for setting up our conditional statements, you first test if and then have a condition here. So like in that code that we just wrote, it was if what we enter is the state equals Missouri or state equals Mo. You can put ors and ands in there too. If this is true, so this is actually going to be a Boolean. This is either going to be true or it's going to be false. If it's true, this code will execute. Whatever is in this if statement is going to execute. If your Boolean comes back and it is false, then the else statement will run. You do not have to have an else statement. It's not something that has to be for every if statement. Like you would say, if it's raining, bring an umbrella. You wouldn't say also, if it is not raining, do not bring an umbrella because you sound a little redundant. So you don't always need the else, but you always need the if. And another thing is that you only need the brackets if you have more than one line of code in your if statement. So if you have more than one thing that happens in your if statement, you need to have the brackets. Otherwise, you don't have to have the brackets in there. For the most part, I like putting the brackets in, even if I just have one line that's running, because for me, it's visually easier to see it. So it's your code. You can do with it what you want, but just be aware that that's something that you need to think about when you're writing the code. You guys are now ready to go on to the third video for lesson 9.